Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Conservation Conversations. Thank you all for joining us today for today's conservation conversation on sustainable marine fisheries, best practices for effective catch and release. My name is Ed Pritchard, and I work for the Miami-Dade County Eco Adventures Unit. This webinar series is a joint effort between UF IFAS Extension, Florida Sea Grant, and Miami Eco Adventures. We will be offering this webinar series every month on Wednesdays at noon. We have our calendar that we're working towards for November and December, but we'll be having these on Wednesdays for the foreseeable future. Although we can't be with you guys in person right now, we're excited to offer this series online and reach even more people than we normally would. So thanks so much for tuning in today. Everyone in this webinar is currently muted. So please remain so and type any questions that you might have throughout the presentation in the chat box, which you can find at the bottom of your options there. And I will be moderating those questions, and we'll be pitching those at the end to our speaker today, and we will answer those then. The webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending that link out in the next few days of the recording. If you'd like to share with your friends or miss some of it, we can get that to you. Please do follow us on social media. We'll put our handles at the end of the presentation, where we will be announcing our upcoming topics at the beginning of each month. If you want to receive an email reminder, I will be putting Anna's email in the chat, and she can get you set up so that you're getting an email every month to receive the registration link and what the topics are. Now, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to today's presenter, Angela Collins.
Thank you, Ed. Hello, everybody. My name is Angela Collins, and I am with Florida Sea Grant in Manatee County, which is on the west coast of Florida. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Anna real quick. She is my counterpart in your area, in your neck of the woods in Miami-Dade County. We both are Sea Grant agents with the University of Florida, IFAS Extension, and Florida Sea Grant. So a lot of people have that same question on what is Sea Grant, and you guys are probably all quite familiar with the Sea Grant organization, but just like a quick overview is that we're a university-based program. We receive all of our partnership and funding from NOAA, and there are Sea Grant programs actually in all of the coastal states, including the Great Lakes and also in Puerto Rico. So our programs are all over the place when it has to do with things in the ocean, from healthy coastal environments to environmental literacy and workforce development, and then also sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. And that's what I'm going to be talking about with you all today. So again, my name is Angela Collins. I'm in Manatee County in the Tampa Bay area, and I'm going to be talking about sustainable marine fisheries in Florida and some of the things that anglers can do to have effective catch and release practices as part of their behavior when interacting with fishes. So saltwater fisheries in Florida are a really big deal. Florida is the fishing capital of the world, and I think they actually did that somehow with numbers. It's not, a lot of people claim that title, but Florida has that title of the fishing capital of the world, and the annual economic impacts related to fishing in Florida exceed $7.6 billion every single year. So annually, the economic impact from fishing industries is quite high for our state. In 2016, we sold almost 2 million recreational saltwater fishing licenses to recreational anglers, and recreational marine fisheries support over 110,000 jobs. So big business in recreational angling. We also are a big commercial seafood producer here in Florida, landing over 90 million pounds of seafood every year that supply 84% of the domestic supply of grouper, mullet, stone crab, pink shrimp, and spiny lobster. So we do supply a lot of these species to the rest of the nation, and they're landed right here in the grand state of Florida. So keeping these fisheries obviously is a very important thing economically, but it's also a very important thing socially. Recreational fisheries are big business in Florida, and a lot of people want to be on the water and interact with our fisheries. So because we have both recreational and commercial stakeholders that are interested in catching fish for various reasons, we do have very good fisheries management processes in place that often include things like size limits, closed seasons, closed fishing areas for specific species. So these regulations can lead to mandatory, basically, catch and release. So you might be fishing for something and catch something else that is not in season, or fishing for something and catch it, but it might not be the right size. And so those fish need to be released. A lot of recreational anglers, especially in inshore environments, also just choose to release the fish that they catch. They might not be fishing for meat, but fishing for just the pure beauty of fishing. So there is a lot of catch and release activity that happens in the state of Florida and elsewhere where there's a lot of fishing going on. So what's the issue with this? Why are we even talking about it? Well, just because a fish is let go doesn't mean that it's going to survive that catch and release event. Okay, so especially in deeper water, you have fish that can get exhausted during the fight and bringing them back to the boat. They can also be vulnerable to predators when they're stuck on that line. You talk to a lot of fishermen and hear about dolphin or sharks or barracuda or Goliath grouper or different sorts of predators that might be interacting with that hooked fish and taking it. Obviously, handling times matter. Keeping that fish out of the water can lead to decreased oxygen levels, and improper handling can actually injure the internal organs and do damage to the skeletal system of some of our extra large fishes. And obviously, hook-related injuries can also be a problem for fish that are caught on hook and line. So the best ways for anglers to minimize some of these impacts on our species is basically, number one, know the rules. Before you go fishing, be well aware of where to find the regulations. So you know what's in season and you know the size limits on the fish that you might want to keep. You also might need to know the fish that you can't keep at all. And I put some of these apps up here, or these web links, but basically the Gulf Council, the South Atlantic Fishery, the Gulf Council, not for you guys because you're on the Atlantic side. So the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council would be your go-to place for a lot of the regulations, and also obviously the state of Florida, myfwc.com. You can find everything you need to know about saltwater recreational angling on all of these sites. And then I bring up the Fish Rules app because this is a recommended app you can download on your phone, and it has all of the fish regulations that are currently updated. They keep track of it and they make sure that they're up to date. So if you have it on your phone, you can just click it open before you go offshore, have it update, and then when you go out there and you're out on the water, you know that you have the most current version of the regulations, because regulations are always changing and they are very hard to keep track of sometimes. So knowing where to look for the rules is important. And then obviously being prepared. You guys have recently experienced a new management rule over there on the Atlantic side. Descending devices are now required for any anglers that are fishing for reef fish. So just remember that, have that in your toolbox. Obviously, some of these things kind of go without saying, but using pliers and some sort of dehooking device. Circle hooks. Circle hooks are excellent for fishing because they typically minimize the chance that the fish is going to swallow the hook. The way that that hook is shaped increases the chance the fish is going to get hooked in the lip right where it's supposed to, and makes it much easier to remove it and minimizes the chances of gut hooking or foul hooking. And then obviously having something to land the fish in for those larger species, and using, kind of a lip grip or a boga grip. If you have a big fish like a big grouper, you can use these lip handling grips that help you kind of control the fish and minimize it getting dropped on the deck. And again, some of these things are sort of intuitive, but I do like to mention to folks just some general best practices to keep in mind when you are fishing, try to keep them from getting tangled up in artificial reefs or habitat. So if you're fishing on an artificial reef or a high relief natural structure, you know those fish like to break that line, and they're going to do that by rushing straight for the habitat. And if you can kind of keep them away from that, pull them off that habitat as quickly as you can, you'll minimize the chance that you're going to break the line and get them get them left with a stringing hook and leader. Minimize the fight time. Although light tackle is more often considered more sporty, if you have the heavier tackle and you can minimize the amount of time that it takes you to fight that fish and bring it in, the overall benefit to the fish is going to be much better when you let it go. And then the hook does matter. So using corrosive non-stainless steel circle hooks, they don't last in your tackle box as long as the stainless ones do, but if you lose a fish, these non-stainless ones will rust out much quicker. And then when you're handling your fish, wet your hands, because those dry hands increase the chance of that protective layer of fish slime being rubbed off during the handling. So you wet your hands before you touch them, and then use a dehooking device to get those hook out. And then for the deeper water fish, and when I say deeper water, I typically mean greater than 1 atmosphere, greater than 30 feet in depth. If you're bringing up a bottom fish from greater than 30 feet, just make sure you do have the tools on board to do some barotrauma mitigation. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So what is barotrauma? I can't see your faces, so I'm not sure if you guys already know what this is or not, but I'm gonna explain it to you anyway. So barotrauma is basically a pressure-related injury that happens when you bring a fish up from deep water. And so if you look at this cool image here, it shows a fish, and this big empty space right here is actually the swim bladder. It's a gas-filled bladder that assists the fish in maintaining neutral buoyancy within the water column. Because it is filled with gas, all of the rules of physics do apply. And when you bring a fish up from the bottom, that change in pressure can create their gas bladders to expand. And that expansion of the gas within these gas bladders is what causes the pressure-related injury, which we refer to as barotrauma. So Florida Sea Grant created a video series, and I'm gonna click on this and see how well it works. And if it doesn't work well transferring online, I have the link down here and we can stick that in the chat, but I'm gonna click play and see.
Hey, Angela, maybe the sound on the video is not on. Move your mouse
Okay.
over.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. We won't play it. I mostly just wanted to show you for the video. I'm gonna actually mute it and I'm gonna talk you through it. Can you see the video?
We sure can.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you can see that this is the gas bladder, and this is sort of a graphic that shows what happens. This gas bladder expands and it pushes the internal organs out of the mouth. That can also cause the pop eye that you might see in some fishes. Sometimes you can't even tell a fish has experienced barotrauma. Here's a nice image right here. The pop eye is here. Here's intestinal protrusion. So these are just some of the things that can happen, but you can mitigate through venting and also through descending, weighted descending gear. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that now. Okay, so these are some of the external signs of barotrauma. A lot of times, this is the first thing that people see. And some people think that this is actually the gas bladder popping out of the mouth, but it's actually the stomach turned inside out. So the gas bladder is in the body cavity, it expands, and it actually pushes the stomach up through the esophagus. And so that's kind of an inside out stomach that you're looking at right there. When you vent the fish or descend it with weighted descending gear, this actually recompresses and all of the internal organs go back into their proper positions. Sometimes you also see this intestinal protrusion through the anus of the animal. Bubbly scales are another sign of barotrauma, and then pop eye. And then also the fish's obvious inability to return to depth on its own. So all of these are signs of pressure-related trauma, and they happen, again, when you're fishing for species that live near the bottom. So typically your reef fish-associated species that live near the bottom, and that also are occurring in depths that are greater than 30 to 60 feet. This is a species specific problem. Some species handle it way better than others do. So depending on the fish that you're fishing for, you might see barotrauma all the time, or you might not witness it at all. A lot of our pelagic species like amberjack really never show any signs of barotrauma, but some of the groupers and the snappers do absolutely exhibit these signs of pressure-related injuries when they're brought up from deeper water. So currently the mitigation strategies that we recommend to anglers are a combination of either venting or using weighted descent. So descending gear, I think that on the East Coast, you guys are all very familiar with now with the new regulations in place. But what weighted descent basically does is you have some sort of a lip grip or mechanism that attaches the fish to some sort of weight that drops that fish to the bottom quickly. Venting is using any hollow filled syringe type thing to puncture the swim bladder. And what this is doing is you're puncturing the gas bladder and releasing that air that's expanded, or releasing that gas that's expanded on the fish's ascent to the surface. So this is just kind of a comparison of the two things. And the reason that I like this figure is it sort of shows you what's happening. You know, this is the barotrauma event. The fish is getting brought up from the bottom. That gas bladder is expanding. The barotrauma is happening. You have the fish on the boat. And if you vent it, you're throwing it back in the water and it has to swim back down on its own. And during this independent swim back to the bottom, it can encounter predators. It might also have some trouble getting down and pop back up. So weighted descent is a great option for getting that fish back down really quickly. They're attached to a line or something that's weighted, and you're basically shooting that fish down to the bottom right away. So it's also non-invasive. You don't have to poke the fish with a venting tool to mitigate the barotrauma. So both of these options, though, work. If they're done correctly, both of these are very acceptable mitigation strategies for getting these fish that experience barotrauma back down to the bottom if they're done correctly. Venting there's a lot more room for user error in venting. Weighted descent is pretty user idiot proof, I guess, is what I'm trying to say there. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a case study that we did with gag grouper. This is a great grouper species. They're found in temperate to tropical waters in the Western Atlantic Ocean. We get them typically up to around North Carolina. On the East Coast, they're throughout the Gulf of Mexico. The adults are reef associated, but they're one of these reef fish species that are intimately connected with our inshore estuaries as well. The juveniles will settle in estuaries and grass flats. Seagrass nurseries are very important to gag grouper. Like most of the groupers, these are sex changers. They're protogynous hermaphrodites, which is the fancy way of saying that they start out as female first, and if they live long enough and the social conditions warrant, they can turn into males. And they typically don't mature until, the females don't even become sexually mature until they're about 2 feet in total length. And the males, you can't even become a male until you're typically around 3 feet if you're a gag grouper. So these are relatively long-lived, large groupers. They do aggregate to spawn in deep water. And they're a very important fishery, both commercially and recreationally in the state of Florida. We have estimates that the recreational fishery for gag grouper is almost double that for the commercial fishery for gag. So a lot of recreational angling for this fish does take place. And they are highly regulated on both the commercial and the recreational side through both size limits, bag limits, also commercial quota. There are seasonal and spatial closures for this species. But one of the things that confounds stock assessment is estimating release mortality. And again, this is due to that catch and release. So the regulatory discards in the recreational fishery become a big consideration for a fish that's managed so much. And estimates of release mortality have ranged anywhere from 10 to 40% of the fish that get released might not survive that catch and release event. So what we did was we acoustically tagged a whole bunch of gag grouper. We tagged over almost 100 fish in the Gulf of Mexico, but across a range of depths from shallow water, about 30 feet, out to deep water, about 150 feet. And I know on the East Coast, you guys have a slightly different situation. It gets deep really fast. But for us over here on the West Coast of Florida, we got to run out like 40 miles to get into 125, 130 feet of water. So we had a good span of recreational depths for the Gulf represented for this fishery. We went out with recreational charter and general anglers and just had them do their fishing for gag like they always fish for gag. And then the gag that we caught, we fitted with external tags. And one of them was just a regular old fish ID tag with just a number and a phone number on it. But the other one was an acoustic pinger. And what these acoustic pingers do is basically every minute and a half, they would transmit this sound that would say, this is my fish ID, this is the date and the time, and this is my depth within the water column. So the acoustic pingers actually have a little pressure sensor inside of them. So you not only know that your fish is there, you also know what depth it is within the water column, which can really allow you to get some fine scale movement and survival data for these individuals that you put tags on. And then we would vent them or we would descend them depending on our sampling strategy, but we did both barotrauma mitigation methods. And I just throw this graph in there because I can never give a talk without having at least one graph. But this is basically showing that, and this is no shocker for anybody that had physics in high school, but barotrauma gets worse. Pressure-related injury gets more severe as you increase the depth of your fishing. So here's the barotrauma value that was assessed, increasing severity on the y-axis, and this is increasing depth on the x-axis. And we had much more fish with more acute levels of barotrauma the deeper we got. This depth is in meters, sorry about that, but 30 meters is about 125 feet. So as you get deeper, your barotrauma issues are going to become more and more obvious. So, but the point here is that we had 93% of the fish that we tagged resumed vertical movement and normal activity within the water column within 2 days of their release. So that is a less than 10% mortality for all of the fish that we tagged. And we also got some really cool extra data. 90% of the fish that we tagged stayed right where we tagged them and gave us a lot of long-term evidence on survival and behavior for at least 2 weeks. And some of these fish we monitored for the entire lifetime of their tag, which was over 1 year. So I want to talk a little bit about what I call data gravy. The point of this project was to assess immediate acute impacts of catch and release on gag grouper, but because our tags lived for at least a year, the tag battery life is a year, we were able to get all this extra data to talk about the recaptures and movement in between sites. So 25% of the fish that we tagged were caught again. And then a lot of these recaptures occurred at the exact same site that we tagged these fish on. But some of the fish were recaptured far, far away from where we initially tagged them. So I just have a little Zoom cartoon to show you to kind of illustrate what these fish do. So I'm going to give you a couple highlights. We had one fish that we tagged in 2014. He stayed on the site that we tagged him for 7 months, or she, I should say. It was a she. She stayed there for 7 months, and when she decided to move pretty quickly. So she traveled 3 miles within 3 hours. And then 2 days later, she was 11 miles away and she was leaving our acoustic study array that had all the listening stations out. Another fish stayed again about 7 months in one spot. And then when he decided to leave, he really left. He shot out of our array. And 2 years later, we had a commercial angler that recaught that gag grouper 69 miles away from where it was initially tagged. So some really cool recapture data from some of these tagging studies. So if you're interested in finding out more about barotrauma or any of this catch and release stuff, I just wanted to bring your attention to some other resources. The Florida Sea Grant website is a great place to start. And then obviously the fishery management councils on either side of the state have a lot of really good resources online. And FWC also has a really great page on catch and release mortality. So you can find out lots of things for both inshore and offshore fish on this FWC page. Florida Sea Grant, again, has a great fisheries website that you can find out more about venting specifically, and also some of those barotrauma mitigation tools. And I need to give a shout out because this is a new program that Florida Sea Grant is offering throughout the state, and it's called the Florida Friendly Fishing Guide Certification. And this is a program that's targeted toward fishing guides, but folks that are not guides are welcome to take the entire course at a discount rate. So this is a great, really in-depth, multiple module program for anyone that's interested in sustainable fishings and best practices in our marine fisheries. So this is just a reminder that really, like, how we handle our fish today seriously impacts how our fisheries are going to look tomorrow. Recreational anglers are a big component in fisheries in Florida, and so best handling practices and, you know, following the rules and knowing before you go, a lot of these tips can really help increase the survival of our fish for our fisheries tomorrow. And then one more quick shout out, if anyone's interested in Florida seafood at your fingertips, these are live Facebook cooking demos where you can learn how to cook all different kinds of seafood, and they're every Wednesday night on the Florida Sea Grant Facebook page. Tonight, they're going to be making oyster empanadas and oysters and poblano peppers, so that sounds delicious if you want to check it out. So there's a poll that Anna and Ed have put together for you guys, if you don't mind to take it. I think it's going to run now. It'll do that. There it goes.
And please scroll down. There is a question that you got to scroll down for. Thank you. All right, thank you guys for participating in that.
Okay, and then here's my contact info. If anybody wants to email me, you can ask me any questions, fish or otherwise, at my email address here. And then Anna, who is your local Sea Grant agent, I have her contact info also right here. And you can get on the list for more of these talks, or if you have any questions about Sea Grant, definitely contact Anna at this email address here. And I'd be happy to take any questions if anyone's got them. Thanks for listening and sharing your lunch break with me today.
All right, thanks so much, Angela. That was an awesome talk. Lots of useful information, and really enjoyed seeing some of that data to back it all up. And now I'm hungry too because of that webinar coming up tonight. But so we're going to go ahead, as she mentioned, we're going to take questions now. It is 12:30 about, so if you have to leave, that's perfectly fine. And if you can, the chat, we'll go ahead and kind of go down the line as those questions roll in. And just as a reminder, we will be recording this, so if you want to share this or if you missed some of it, we'll send that out in the next few days. So looks like we already have a couple coming in. Oh, and I did put Angela's email on there as well, so in the chat box, so if you want to send her any questions there, you can. So let's go ahead and start with Joanna. Is there any data or research on slime removal from fish and their survival rate while fishing and practicing catch and release?
So that is a good question. The slime removal thing is another one that's very species specific. So I would have loved to just talked about data all day, because that's the thing about a lot of these catch and release mortality estimates is they're so dependent upon the species that you're talking about. Some fish have a much more significant slime coat and slime building process than others do. So there are some papers out there that have demonstrated that fish get infection at a greater rate when they're handled a lot and that slime protective layer is removed. So yes, I guess the short answer is yes. I don't know if there's a specific one on gag or on some of the grouper species that, you know, I like to talk about, but there are definitely papers in the fisheries research database that could show you that the removal of slime will increase their rate of infection or exposure to parasites for a little bit after handling.
Great. We have a comment here from Richard. He wants to kind of make this known to the entire chat because we might have some professionals here that could help with this. But he said yesterday while scuba diving off Deerfield Beach, he saw a number of juvenile lionfish about a mile east of the Deerfield Beach Pier. So for those that are looking to do some spear fishing, there you go. Any other questions for Angela? So here we go. Anna would like to know, how would a recreational angler learn how to vent?
Well, there are a ton of resources online. So the Sea Grant website has resources, the FWC website has resources, including instructional videos. But if I was just gonna walk you through it, yeah, first I would say a quick Google and you'd find like way more resources than you would probably wanna look at. But the best strategy if you've never vented before is one, just make sure you have a proper venting tool, and that's a hollow, some sort of a hollow sharp device, and a hypodermic needle with a relatively large gauge works perfectly. They also sell like commercially produced venting devices, but press that pectoral fin flat against the body, and then insert your venting tool at a 45-degree angle right at the edge of where the pec fin hits the body, and you can kind of see where a lot of times they'll be bloated in that general area too. And then you'll actually hear like a psst, you'll hear the air release, and that's how you know you got in the right spot for sure. But yeah, look for images online. There are a lot of those out there, but Sea Grant and FWC both have good resources for that. That's a great question.
All right, great. I have a question regarding, you know, as far as the educational side of things, what would be, I mean, from your perspective, you know, one of the best practices in terms of, you know, teaching, you know, some of these best practices? What have you found, you know, as some of the best methods and practices for communicating some of the things you talked about today?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of times the seeing is believing, right? So experiential learning is a really good way to communicate a lot of these things. You can show people papers all day long, but when they see it with their own eyes, it's a really nice, it brings the lesson home. So I really like the short videos, especially for anglers, the new anglers. You know, I like the short educational videos that are available that show you exactly how the fish reacts when you vent it. The descending gear videos are also really telling, because a lot of times you can actually see like the effects of barotrauma disappear as the fish is brought down on that weighted descent. Like you can see the stomach get back in, you know, back into the body. You see the body bloat go down. So I think probably the best communication strategy is just showing them that these practices work. And
Yeah.
so that's for barotrauma specifically, but yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
We have another question. Are there any catch and release studies that Florida Sea Grant is doing on the East Coast that you could talk about?
No, not Florida Sea Grant specifically, but there are multiple tagging programs and initiatives from various academic and management agencies in Florida that are tagging fish on both the Atlantic and the Gulf sides. So yeah, it just would depend on the species, but Florida Sea Grant right now does not have anything targeted on the Atlantic side.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have a question for Angela? All right. Well, if not, again, we can you can shoot anything that you might think of afterwards over to her. Her email is in there in the chat. We really appreciate you guys coming out today and joining us for this great talk. And oh, we have another message pop in. That was just
Yeah, listen, hey,
thank
this
you.
is Captain. I don't
Oh,
know, can you guys hear me?
yep. Go ahead,
You
Captain.
can hear me, okay. Hey, this is Captain Wayne Kahn, Reward Fishing Fleet. Anna invited me to kind of listen in to see kind of what this all is about, and it's extremely informative. I do like that a lot. I'm just curious at how do you anticipate to get this sort of a thing out to more folks with the general public? I don't know how many people are actually listening, but it would benefit a whole lot more people if you could access. There's a lot of fish groups, let's say on Fishing Booker, or not Fishing Booker, excuse me, on Facebook. There's several groups, and there's a lot of these guys they're into vertical jigging now, slow pitch jigging. They catch a whole lot of bottom fish, and I take these folks fishing all the time on special trips, and they don't have a lot of knowledge on this. And I teach as I go. Anna knows that. I pretty much got it down fairly well. You know, I'm extremely interested in letting every fish go in the best possible shape that we can. That being said, doing what you're doing here now, if I'm not sure what the goal is other than to get it out. Is it just to get it out to the general public? And how are you accessing more folks? And, you know, how can this best be used is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Wayne. And I think that I'll start by saying there are tons of different organizations that are pushing this message out, as you are well aware. I'm sure, you know, between FWC and the councils. I mean, there are lots of different, but you're right. Communicating with the public is one of those wicked problems, right? Trying to get everybody that fishes on the same page. So I'm going to throw this back to you. I think a lot of times the charter captains are some of our biggest advocates in expressing the science. So I do a lot of cooperative research with charter guys over here on the west coast of Florida, and they are the best. You guys are the best advertisers. We can
Yeah, we're
shout
your best
down
ambassadors.
rules.
We're the ambassadors.
Yes, exactly. Ambassadors was the word I was looking for, but yeah. I think I think that that public messaging is huge, and you know, getting every Facebook group and every Facebook page. That's just one of those, you know.
Well, I kind of missed the boat on this. There's a couple groups I'm in, and I didn't quite know. And when you're going to do it again, I'll try to put it out there. There's several groups I'm in that I'm sure it'll attract more of an audience from recreational anglers that are just starting in some kinds of fishing now that's kind of new to them. And like I said, on board my boats, we teach it. I don't care if you're from Sweden, you're going to see a sequelizer used before we ever would invent a fish. I don't like poking fish. I don't think that's the best way to let a fish go, because I think unless you do it properly, you could actually kill a fish, do more damage than you are helping it. And I think I've seen enough of that. We only use circle hooks on our bottom fishing rigs. That's it. I've been doing that for years, way before I know it's a requirement on the West Coast, but I kind of took it upon myself a long time ago. And it really started with doing kids trips where we were using barbless circle hooks, where we'd go out and catch 500 or 600 fish with, 50 kids on the boat and never kill one. And every fish is released. Every kid gets to release one with a de-hooker. And teaching them basics. It's like there's little things I do. It's like, if a person's going to let a fish go, I say, when you pick it up out of the water, hold your breath.
Right.
And see how, as long as you hold your breath, don't expect that fish to live much longer. So it's like I'm trying to, and all of our customers really, unless they try to beat the rules a bit and try to stretch the fish a little, stuff like that, which we deal with daily, unfortunately, trying to slide fish in their coolers that are half an inch short, stuff like that. We try to take it and be as lighthearted as we can about it and just tell them, no, we follow the rules and this is what we do. And that's how we have fish for the future. We're releasing right now 10 to 20 mutton snappers a day. And I'm very proud of that. And we let them all go with sequelizers. And that's a lot of fish when you think about it.
Yeah.
When you think about it on a monthly basis, if I'm releasing, even if it was half of that a day, it's still 300 to 500 fish a month that are illegal size, that are getting a better opportunity to live than if I threw them in the cooler, for dang sure. So that's kind of the way I tell the folks, because they'll say, well, he's dead, isn't he? You say, well, you know what? I don't know how he's going to be at 150 feet, but if we don't see him float back up, we're okay here. Then he's got a better chance. But yeah, that's what I say. I think these things are really good. And if you can get it the right audience, I think it'll spread better amongst the community you want to reach, which is, it's more recreational anglers. Look, the commercial guys do what they do. And they got it all down one way or they're going to do it one way or the other, to the right or to the left. But your recreational anglers, your professionals in the business that have to enforce it and do it appropriately and do it in the right way, with the resource in mind. So, I've seen people grab mahis that are short and they poke them, they squeeze their finger and their thumb through the gills, rip the hook out and say, oh, he's too small, and throw him back. Well, that's not exactly catch and release. And that's
No.
a common way. That's a common way that people do that. And of course, we don't allow it on the boat. We don't touch a fish if we can help it, if we're going to let it go. We try to use de-hooker, pliers, whatever, and shake it over the side without ever giving it any kind of either de-sliming it or any kind of trauma. So that's the best way. Now we have to grab mud snappers, of course, and stuff. We either grab them across the whole body if we have to, just as least invasive as possible. But we try to enforce that. And I think if the professionals are doing it that way, it sends a really good message for sure. But the recreational anglers need to know it as well, and making this more accessible, something like this you just did, I think it's a great idea. But maybe check out on Facebook the different fishing groups that you can join. If you join, and being basically part of a lawmaking organization within the state and all that, I think would have a pretty good clout with with a lot of these fishing groups. You got a lot of newbies coming in and out, and it may open some doors that allow you to get your message out a little better.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's an excellent point. And I will say again, thank you for everything you're doing to talk about these issues with the anglers you have in your boat. Like you were saying with the kids, I mean, if we can educate our little ones on how to fish properly, those guys are the future. So thank you for doing what you're doing to teach best practices with the people on your
Yeah,
boat.
we used to do 5,000 or 8,000 a year, I guess. I don't know, but when there's no funding right now. I mean, and now with the COVID things changed. I've only been doing private schools to speak of. Anna's been a feature speaker for me for a long time. And we've gone to a handful of private schools, and I do some other small groups. But, my program's in place called Kids Let's Go Fishing. We bring in organizations that speak at the schools, and then we get to take them all fishing, and they're going to catch fish, and they're going to bait their hooks. They're going to mess up their rods. They're going to untangle them and just do all the stuff they need to do, to hopefully, to me, out of 50 kids, if I got 2 or 3 of them that really want to do it again, I'm okay with that, but
Yeah.
of that age group. Yeah, the older kids, I really don't want much part of high school kids because I don't think I can reach them. But the 5th, 6th graders, stuff like that, they're still eyes wide open. And on the boat, I mean, you can see videos on my websites and stuff that show, 40, 50 kids, catching little grunts and stuff and using de-hookers, and it's a really good thing. I just need a lot of help to get it off the ground. I got the boats, I got the resources. I'm a vendor with the state, with the city, with Dade County Public Schools, with about every group you can imagine. And I still can't get any help with getting together kids, even for a nominal amount, to even cover my costs and do this. It's a huge issue. Kids can't go fishing anywhere anymore. There's another group organization they're trying to open up accessibility to the waterways or the water. And I was part of it a couple months ago. And it's I'm not going to say it's a joke, but everything is restricted around this town. You go to other places, bridges and stuff like that. There's people fishing on banks, on bridges, everything. Not in Dade County. You can't fish on a bridge in Dade County. You can't hardly fish in a canal without a sign saying keep out. I don't know where a kid's supposed to fish. I don't know. You could have all the programs in the world you want, but unless they have accessibility to somewhere to fish, it ain't going to happen. They're not going to grow up and be fishermen if they don't get an early start. So what I see it leaving it to be the last 10 or 15 years is if your family's not a fishing family, you ain't going to be one because you don't have accessibility and you don't have the either your older brothers and sisters would have to do it as well. But for young kids and anymore and parents to do it with them, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of, if you look around town, there's not a lot of places kids can fish.
Hi, Wayne. Hi, Wayne. This is Anna. I'm
Hey.
sorry to interrupt,
Yes,
but
I need to shut up sometimes.
no, we love what you have to share. You have wonderful experience, and we're all really glad that you're here. Welcome to your first conservation conversation.
Yeah, I like being part of these things. I'll gladly help. I'll speak. I'll do
That's-
whatever you need. Whatever you need, I'd throw in anytime you want for a hands-on guy. I've been doing this stuff 50 years, so
Yep.
actually my whole life.
Yep.
I probably haven't killed a shark in 35 years, so I'm very conscientious about the life of what the resources we have.
We're a little over on when we were supposed to have ended, so we want to be respectful of everyone's time, because I know people have limited lunch break and they're taking it to spend with us.
Well, I apologize for eating up so much of your time. I got to go fix a boat, so just keep me in mind for the next one. I'd be happy to be part of it.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
Anna, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hey, Gil, we're going to give it a second. If people need to go, they can. And if you have a question for Angela, we can take it at this time, but I know she's going to have to get ready to go soon as well.
No,
hey, Gil, I'm saying goodbye.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Just wanted to make one comment. Marty and I have presented similar programs at private schools and also with Biscayne National Park. So this was part of our major program. So just put me on the list, keep me on, compliments on what you're doing.
You
Awesome.
bet, Gil.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And we'll certainly, if we do any sort of in-person teachings for barotrauma mitigation or catch and release, there are certainly opportunities. It's nice to know that there's interest. And between Florida Sea Grant, Joanna Olchik at the IGFA, and as well as our local captains, I think we have a lot of great resources to make that happen. So please stay tuned to our social media pages, and hopefully Angela's talk piqued your interest into this topic.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for putting it on.
All right. Thank you, everybody.